to the life they saved. Real talk, real vets, every tale's got pride. From the battlefield's edge to the home front side. Tune in, turn it up, hear the heroes speak. The Vet Files bring the truth every week. From the fight to the mic, it's a soldier's life. You're live with the Vet Files, real stories, real life. Vet Files, real stories, real life.
All right, welcome to the Vet Files. This is where we dive into the untold stories of some of our nation's veterans. I'm your host, Matt Cochran, and in each episode, we sit down with veterans from all walks of life to hear firsthand accounts of their experiences in the military and beyond. From the battlefield to the home front, we try to explore some of the challenges and triumphs and the enduring spirit that just defines those who have served. Whether you're a veteran or a family member or someone who just wants to understand the true cost of freedom, join us as we honor the voices of those that have shaped our history and continue to inspire our future. And speaking of one of those folks, our first guest here on the Vet Files is Mr. Ken Freeney. How you doing today, Ken?
Not bad. How you doing, Matt?
I am outstanding, as everybody says. High speed and low drag.
There you go.
Hey, introduce yourself a little bit, Ken.
Well, I'm Ken Freeney, and I had a little over 18 and a half years cumulative with the service between active duty, getting in and out, a little time in the reserves, and then went back on Title 10 before they put
AGR.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, when you do Title 10, there's so many different variations of it,
right?
You know, from active back to full status versus the NGRs, the AGRs, and everything else. It's a wide, diverse category, and I could dive into that totally separate. But I guess my last out was in 2004 or 5.
That's when you finished up?
Finished up everything.
Okay. Mine was like in 2014. That was whenever I finished up there. Ended up doing 6 years. Went into the Nasty Girls or the National Guard. My story is a little bit different, and I'll give you a little background real quick. So I'm sitting on my couch one day around 2008-ish or something, and stuff is breaking loose in Iraq, and it's just kind of going everywhere. And I had this patriotic feeling coming to me, says, what can I do? I've got a family, got a career, all this. I'm 36 years old, 35 years old. I said, hey, I can go join the National Guard 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. Oh, great idea. So I went and joined. And then as soon as I went to, I joined in March, went back to basic at 36 in June, didn't get home until late November. And then from there, I was gone to Iraq. I was just gone. So tell me a little bit about your background before the military. You know, we talked a little bit about this, but what kind of motivated you to join the military?
I think I was destined to be in the military. Like we were saying, I grew up on John Wayne, Robert Mitchum, Jimmy Stewart, which all of them were veterans except for John Wayne and a few others. But the movies we watched and the whole persona of military guys in uniform got the girls. They had an exciting life. They didn't talk about money. I mean, none of them were rich. We didn't catch on to that. And it just kind of my first high school report was on the branches of the service. I was really intrigued by it. Little did I know the truth later on, so to speak. But, you know, I went to work construction right out of high school. That job seemed to be playing out. I went in the Air Force first. That was my first enlistment ever. And they signed a $13 million contract while I was at boot camp and run that job for another 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
So, you know, I think some of it was necessity, but like I said, I kind of fit. It was an environment that fit for me.
Almost like a calling that you felt from early on, like just.
Yeah. I didn't want to stay home. I didn't want to be where I was at. I mean, for me, Matt, when I graduated that night, I got in my car and left, and I didn't have mama issues and daddy. I didn't have none of that. I had a good family. I just wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
And the military gave me that option after working construction. I was like, damn, You know, they sent me to Okinawa. They sent me all over the place.
Right.
But then one day you wake up and you realize, hey, this has got some baggage with it.
Well, you know, everything, what did they say is yin and yang is like, you don't get something for nothing, right?
No,
So
not at all.
you gotta weigh those things. But you know, when you're that young, you don't really think about um, what comes along later, I guess is what I'm saying. It's like, you know, all you're hearing is what that recruiter told you. Hey, you're going to be this, you're going to be able to travel the world. You're going to make X number of dollars. You don't have to worry about food, housing, clothing. You know, it's going to be awesome. And that's all you're thinking about. But then the hook comes, you know, and it's like, wow. Yeah. So you probably were was you 18 when you first joined right out of high school? Is that what you said? Or?
Well, yeah, I actually signed on that delayed entry program just to have an option to lock in a boot camp in case I failed. And I guess that's where the veterans, if you will, I mean, we didn't know they were veterans at a young age, but the guys that were kind of teaching you and structuring you always have an out. That was the one thing I learned before I graduated high school, and I took that to the military. You always have an out. Well, when the job didn't look like it was going forward at construction, I had that to fall back on.
Right.
Which it was something I liked. So, you know, if that makes sense, it was delayed entry was there for people that had either bad families, bad incomes. There was an option, you know, to know when you graduated, you had something on the tail end.
Especially if you grew up, I don't know if you grew up like me. I grew up in a small town. I think our whole county had like 6,000 people in the county. And I had 70 or 80 people in my graduating class. And then there wasn't nothing. So my choices were, if I stayed there, is because I definitely couldn't go to college. Not because I wasn't book smart. I didn't have the money. I didn't have this. I didn't know how to do any of that. And so the military to me too also was like that. But my choices, probably a lot like yours, was you either go to work for the state or you go to work for the local sewing company or whatever they got going on there, and just live your miserable life there. You know, there just wasn't any options. So
well, and that was I consider everything an option, and I believe in the free will, free choice. And how to say this, we grew up poor. I mean, we come up through not having anything to getting in a trailer. And when we got into a trailer, I mean, we thought we were probably the Trumps at the time back then because we got into a clean house.
Yeah.
By the time I graduated, Dad was doing fairly well. And we was in a county that had factories, like you said, but you was kind of limited to where you was going to go.
Right.
And I say this, and then people look at me and think I'm crazy. And they said, your dad should have killed you. When I graduated, halfway through that summer construction job, Ole Miss contacted me and wanted me to run track for 2-year scholarship.
Oh, wow.
Another high school that was getting into rodeo offered me a scholarship to ride rodeo. And I was like, no, I'm good here because I got money. I mean, I was working in 3 states construction as an 18-year-old, pulling down $400 something a week.
And that was big money, man. Yeah, folks who listening to this, now $400 a week was huge.
Which will make this part of the story, if you remember that number, making about $400 a week. Part of it was Tennessee money, which was not taxed really. So I turned those down to stay with the construction. I go in the military. Some guy talks to me. He says, dude, you're above this shit. And I'm like, I'm just a good old boy. You know, I like what I'm doing. I actually put in for the nomination to the academy, and they sent me the paperwork. I mean, they picked me up quick and was going to send me to the pre-class, whatever they used to call it, some kind of whatever. You get paid as an E5 while you go to the academy, all this.
Oh yeah. Like OCS or,
it was
a candidate. I think they had the little dots, if I remember, for their rank.
I was set to go to the Air Force Academy.
Wow.
And I turned that down to do other things in the military, and my dad found out about it and come mortally unglued. And, you know, and here's the big twist. At boot camp, when I enlisted, your monthly pay before taxes was $465, if I remember right. And it only went up to like $499 a month.
Yeah.
So I went from $400 a week to
To a month.
$499 a month.
Yeah, I remember that because I actually joined right after high school. And this was about 91. And of course, I had to be a hero. And I wanted to be 11 Bravo, Airborne Ranger, and all this stuff. And I remember getting my first paycheck, and I think I was looking at it, and I was like, 300 and something. What is this? Because I remember the battalion commander, you know how they get everybody in there in the company during basic training. And they give you a little hoorah speech or whatever. I remember to this day that BC told everybody there, he says, men, your job here in the military is to be cold, wet, miserable, and hungry. And I said, no, that's not what the recruiters said. Yeah. So speaking of basic training, what was your experience like? Was there anything that really stands out that was memorable that happened, or any kind of challenges that you had?
I would say that boot camp, there's always something memorable, but you don't remember a lot of names. I remember certain fights that happened. I remember a lot of the people that you go through with, the drill sergeants, you don't forget their names.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if I can mention them or not because they may or may not like it, but hell, they probably passed away now because that's 100 years ago. But those two stick.
Right.
One of them was just.
I remember one of my drill sergeants. His name was. He was the senior drill sergeant, Jesus Besnes. So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But out of all of it, the miserable, I have one funny moment about a short drill sergeant named Martinez, and we had a guy that was 6'3" named Martinez, and we were standing in formation one day. Oh my gosh, drill sergeant they called them technical sergeants in the Air Force. Now I get to appreciate this because I was a drill sergeant in the Army, so
I saw some of those pics. Yeah,
I've been on both sides of the abuse, but
I like that, both sides of the abuse.
Drill Sergeant Martinez comes down through there. Beautiful Sunday morning. We're supposed to have a little bit of, I won't say playtime, but relaxation because we're toward the end. He sees this 6'3" Martinez. Didn't look Puerto Rican, Mexican. He was tan, but what he looked like is just kind of normal to us at that point because all you're seeing is green. This little short shit spun around. And I don't want nobody to take this wrong, but I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. He got in his face and he said, What the hell? Where did you steal that name from? You're no fucking Martinez. I'm a Martinez. My family come over here. We got our cards. I joined the fucking military. You're no Martinez. We have nobody 6'3" in the Martinez family. You are a transplant. And he commenced to ribbon him about not being a real Martinez at 6'3". And he tells him, you want to be a Martinez? You got to be my height. Get on your knees. See, we Martinez, we see eye to eye. That's all we see. You are not a Martinez. I'm going to go talk to your recruiter. This is some bullshit. And just turned around like nothing happened and walked off. And now this went on for longer than that. And dude, we were rolling. And our drill sergeant, he had his head down, trying not to bust up. And he calls us to attention. And he says, just laugh. Get it out.
I'm Martinez. You're not Martinez.
Yeah, he gave him family tree, told him when they came over, the whole 9 yards. And there was no way. So there was a lot of that. And I think for me, I caught the old school people coming through.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of respect, and they believed in respect given and respect earned. Those two categories, you know. The respect given is by the rank, you know, automatically because you're a senior or you're military and you got a rank. That is a given respect to that position, but you have to earn what feels that.
Right. You got to back it up with that, build that respect on the back end, not just because you got some stripes or some brass on your shoulder.
And loyalty, those two things out of those guys. And that old school mentality sets you up for the rest of your career, so to speak, in my opinion. But
no, I agree. I agree with you. I saw it all the time. I had, they would say shit NCOs and shit officers. And then I had awesome NCOs and, well, one or two officers that were good. But most of the officers that I experienced was that were really good. They were NCOs before they became officers.
Yeah.
And they had great, so one or two of them I would follow into battle. I don't even care if we were fighting a pack of wild raccoons or whatever, you know. I mean, they just demanded that respect, but they didn't come off of, well, yeah, I read this in a book and kind of thing. So after basic, I guess the Air Force I'm not that familiar with. So I guess you went to their version of AIT after that. What do they call that in Air Force? Is it?
They've changed it 101 times, but it was basically an Air Force specialty deal. And,
Okay.
you know, it was different. It was kind of a lot of retardation, to put it mildly. I don't want to be rude, but
be careful we don't get canceled.
Yeah, I say that in a loving way because you have structure and stuff for a reason. It keeps everything in order, but I hate structure. I was never big on the saluting and ceremony. That's why I never fit. And believe it or not, I wound up surviving almost 10 years with those fools without getting kicked out. I think it was borderline a few times. But we, I don't know. You go to the specialty class. I didn't fit. I'd started out in maintenance and I always found myself doing other stuff. They always had me doing things outside the box because for some reason things fit for me.
Mm-hmm.
Athletically, I wasn't where I should have been in high school, even though I did sports. It wasn't until senior year I blossomed. In the military, I really started blossom. I think it was better structure and training. But my electronics started to come out and I started to get involved in some electronic surveillance stuff and things like that. So just about every time they sent me to an assignment, I wound up doing other stuff, which, you know, hey, works out good. And I got to work with a lot of different agencies and things. Compared to the Army, yeah, that statement I made earlier, sometimes you just wonder how they function. You know, you said earlier, you got some good and bad people.
Right.
It's a lot more. It's the word I'm looking for. It's run two separate different. Air Force is one of the biggest businesses in the planet.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's a business.
Yeah, I tell everybody, says, yeah, if you join, if they say, I'm thinking about joining the Air Force or the Army, I said, okay. They say, and I'm looking back at this now before me wanting to be G.I. Joe. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'll help you make your decision. Just ask yourself, do you want to sleep in the dirt or do you want to sleep on a bed?
Yeah.
And that's basically the way it is. So,
and when you get assigned to an Army unit, depending on the assignment, and things have changed a lot, you may or may not be grunting it as hard as they are. And sometimes you're right in the thick of it. There's no difference. You're like, okay, which branch did I join? And I remember one time we were at Herbert Field down in Florida, and a guy got in some trouble. And this NCO from the Army walked over and he looked at me and he said, dude, I don't know what to do with it. I was like, what do you mean? He said, he works for us. He's part of us. But he says, I can't give him an Article 15. You know, I can't push for an Article 15 here. I ain't got no paperwork to give him. What do I do? I said, why don't you just kick his ass? You know, I mean, I don't know. Settle the problem. Go school it. Kick his ass.
Right.
And a little while later, we heard something. We went behind the hangar, and these two were scrapping. They were getting it on.
Wow.
Here comes the XO from their unit. What the hell's going on? I said, dude, I think he's giving him a counseling session. And he goes, what? All he had to do was, and he stopped dead in his tracks, Matt, because he didn't know what to do either because of the difference in the services back then. And it was kind of hilarious. You know, you get down into that part of the service and it's like, okay. And I saw the same thing when I switched over. And you get the mattresses at times. The Air Force goes and deploys. Oh, they took mattresses, this and that. Well, yeah, they did. And some of your special ops guys are like, hey, you know, I'm taking my bedrolls. I'm taking this and that. And because they didn't function in that world. but pound for pound, they were just as solid as
Right.
another branch. It's just they run it different.
Mhm.
General Kemp and Ralston told me one time, if we got the money in the budget, we're going to reward people. And I'm fixing to say something here, and I know it's going to tick some people off, but
Oh, who
when I
cares?
was in Panama, I was given $1,200 a month per diem for being down there.
Oh, wow.
And General Kemp said, if we're going, and basically I'm just going to sum up what he said. He said, if we're going to screw people, we're going to pay them for it. And then
Oh, yeah.
I found out from those guys, and even when I run into some of the more famous people like the Schwarzkopf and stuff later on, the money was there for this. It was a question of how it was used off the budget, how it was pulled. Now, that $1,200 a month I got back then was a dream. Other deployments, we didn't even get our per diems or our family separation page. They were like, it's not in the budget. Well, where'd that toilet paper money go?
Speaking of deployments and missions, let's kind of dive into some of that. What was your first deployment?
Let's see. I was not temporary duty. I was PCS to Okinawa, Japan. After Okinawa, Japan, I came back to Hill Air Force Base, Utah. And from there, they sent us down to Panama, which not Panama, Florida for some people, but country of Panama.
Panama Canal.
That's
Panama.
it. And Noriega was in charge at the time, and they were running drug interdiction forces out of Panama. And there was a lot of stuff going on right after the Bush administration. And just a little history. There was an incident that happened in the Gulf of Mexico, and the Bush family and the drugs and everything, all the interconnection with Noriega, decided enough is enough. And we invaded Panama in December. Well, we come home about 12 hours before that, land in Utah to be told we're turning around and going back 4 hours later to Panama.
And this was around for Bush. A lot of folks, especially if they're younger, this is the first Bush, right?
Yeah,
Back in the 90s, right after Reagan.
Yep. It was in 1989. And, that was probably the first true deployment, if you will, as far as I remember a sergeant come in and asked for 2 volunteers. You hear these stories all the time. One of the guys said, hey, what are we doing? He turned around and said, I didn't ask you for a question. I asked you for an answer. And I was like, damn, this is serious. And me and another guy were like, we'll go. And he said, go see the major. We went and saw the major. After we talked to him, he kind of gave the same attitude. He said, you'll know when you get there. And it was all classified. So we went, packed our gear, met everybody. We took off. It's winter, October. Sorry. It's October. Cold in Utah. They opened the back doors of this C-5 and the heat rushed in from Panama. And you're right there at Howard Air Force Base. We're wearing parkas still because it's cold on the aircraft. Damn near passed out. I mean, instant sweat.
Right.
And we spent our time down there working with all kinds of branches on this drug interdiction force because of all that stuff that had happened. They come in one day and told us, hey, pack your bags, you're going home. We're like, no, we're staying. None of us wanted to go home. And they're like, no, you're going home. So we throw a fit. We wind up getting in a fight on the tarmac over the aircraft, led by our captain that we loved. I went to get on this aircraft. I mean, I could run all day with the funny part of it. But we go to get on this aircraft, and this group said, that's our aircraft. And our captain said, no, it's not. And this master sergeant walked up, poked his finger out, and one of the staff sergeants slapped his hand. Of course, this is a little different back then than what people's used to. And the type of people we're talking about just didn't mesh well. And the captain said, that's our plan, and poked him in the chest. And after that, it became a wrestling match. And the whole time that we're wrestling with these guys, captain run inside and told them, hey, it's our flight. We're taking it.
I love the old days, man, where you could lay hands on people. It didn't matter.
It was more fun in games. It wasn't as serious as it sounds, but everybody knew there was going to be an outcome to who actually got to play. So you're going to love this. 5 of us, 5 backpacks get on this C5. No, 141. Sorry, 141. We go to take off. We didn't strap everything down because there's only 5 of us and some backpacks. Somebody called a sniper alert. So the 141 does a combat takeoff. Everything rolls to the tail section. Loadmaster's pissed. We fly in, land in Utah, and they surround this plane by cops. There's a ton of them. Our security police, the rat patrol, as we used to call them. And we think, oh, shit, there's only 5 of us, and one of us has got cocaine. Which one of you idiots has stole the cocaine? And doors open, 2 security police jump in, doing their port arms things like they did. And Colonel gets on. He says, guys, everything's good. I need to see you in the command post before you go home. So takes in the command post, and he's like, well, guys, you did a great job. We love you and everything. And you know how it is with the military. It's come and go and hurry up and wait. But you're going to have to hurry up because you're going back in 4 hours.
Wow.
We start laughing. Hey, good joke. This is a good one. You wasted a lot of funds, but hats off, good joke. And he goes, no, I'm serious. We're going back. And Pruitt asked him, why? He said, well, we got a drug shipment and we need our unit on the ground, boots on the ground, blah, blah, blah. We're like, there's like 50,000 GIs down there. And this is Panama. We could overrun them with a bunch of college girls, And he's like, look, I'm going to let you go home, see your families, keep your mouth shut, be back here. The plane's going to take off in 4 hours. You're grown adults. We ain't the Army or the Marine Corps. I'm letting y'all out the gate. Keep your mouth shut. We kind of chuckled. It's one dude's wife. She's almost ready to deliver. We're waiting on rides to go home, and we hear her yelling, what the F you mean you're going blah, 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 blah. And she's got her hands on her hips, and that baby's going back and forth. So we just pile in the first car we get, take off. We're going to let him get his butt whipped by his wife out there on the street. And so anyway, we rolled back. We land. Same scenario as when we land in Utah. This chief gets on board and says, I need to talk to y'all. We're like, what is going on? So they drag us in this room and we're like, hey, we're not stupid. We did not join the Navy. And that's what Staff Sergeant said. He goes, I'm not stupid. And the Navy guy goes, yeah, ha, you can fight me or whatever. And there's all these people we realize in the back of the room. And he said, look, we're invading Panama tonight. You need to go get some rest, grab your stuff, and get ready. This is kicking off tonight. Everybody's got a job. We're going to do it. And then from there, it was a mess. They launched some Apaches. They had some F-16s there that didn't get into it. Some of the T-37s got into it. The SEAL team got shot up. 82nd Airborne come in and jumped in late. Everything's pretty much done by the time they got their combat wings. So there was that kind of camaraderie argument later on.
Now, if I remember correctly, or maybe I don't, but they never really considered that a combat zone officially, right?
Yes, they did.
It just? Oh, they did officially name it a combat, not just a campaign or.
You got the Expeditionary Medal for it.
Okay.
Panama is listed as Operation Just Cause. It is an official VA thing that you can, because of the Expeditionary Medal, it carries a lot of weight. I found out that medal carries a lot of weight. And that was issued to, I don't know if everybody got it, but a large part of us did get it. And it is listed on your right there with Desert Shield, Desert Storm, all that. So now it is official, if you will.
Because I was trying to think, my brother, pretty much all my family served in the Army, but one of my brothers served, and he went to Bosnia and spent a year there. And I don't think that was considered actual combat operations at that point.
Part of it is you kind of got to go on that page. There's a page somewhere that lists all that by date and time, and the VA has it. And then there's some stuff you can apply for if you're trying for your benefits, that if you can prove your dates in country, they've kind of opened the door for it. But, Vietnam vets are still fighting for benefits.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
But the PACT Act.
Yeah.
I keep saying, has kind of opened the door for that up a little bit more for those guys in Vietnam. I know my uncle, who's still with me, thank God, he fought in Vietnam also. And, so it's those guys got the shaft, I'm going to tell you.
in some ways they still do. I go to these classes and I've had some procedures done, and I hear how long it took some of these guys to get treatment. It's
Oh yeah, definitely.
ridiculous of what they've had to go through. And, you know, kind of like Panama. I mean, what we just talked about there,
Mhm.
just in that little discussion, we haven't covered any of the injuries, the issues. Most
Right.
people don't know this. There was a commander from the Navy that lost his command overnight because he bucked sending that SEAL team into the airport, and they got
Mhm.
shot up. Several of them got killed. I mean, even though you think about the movies and how things happened, I mean, you've got that aspect of it right there. You've got control of the bridge, control of the canal, the mortars that were turned toward the base housing. They had already evacuated a lot of civilians, but they still knew they were there, and they fired some mortars at civilians. There was GIs that got killed. There was fights or street fighting. All this happened in a matter of just a couple of days, a few days. You know, that's a lot of high stress. That's a lot of high speed stuff for everybody. Snipers, and then you throw in the weather and everything else. And you've got guys from Vietnam did that for 3-4 years.
Mhm.
And then you've got guys that deployed for over a year to Desert Shield, Desert Storm, then Afghanistan.
Right.
I mean, when you take from what we're talking about to now and take Vietnam out of it, we've got from 1985, 86 roughly to now constant deployments
Oh yeah, definitely.
are drawing on this PACT Act. But you've got guys that saw as much in 15, 20 years in 4 years through the 60s. World War II
Oh yeah,
was 4 years and out.
yeah.
And it just, it saddens me to think about that. I'm
Right.
glad the PACT Act is here, but we still got to fund it. And we still got a lot of people that's got to be
And
pulled.
speaking of that's part of the new budget I saw where the VA's asking for a huge increase that they've never seen before. But hey, you know, it is what it is, right? They said that they're going to take care of us, and hopefully, well, all right, we can get into politics a little bit later. So that was Panama.
Yeah.
So after Panama, I saw some pictures and videos that you sent me and stuff, which very interesting. So so you went to Desert Shield or Desert Storm at that point, or take us up to that point.
Well, I came home, went to a couple of schools, and then turned around and I was on vacation when I got called that they were pulling people back. And I was given an option to stay on vacation or come home or home base.
Right.
That decision would have carried a lot of weight later on, but I decided to return back. Was put back in another unit and deployed to Desert Shield, Desert Storm, which Desert Shield, we left somewhere between mid-July and August. And then I came home right around April, if I remember right. It's when my daughter was born. So, you know, I was there for the intro and entrance to Desert Storm.
Right.
And then after that, you know, I'm going to say pretty much after March time frame with Desert Storm, they started into the no-fly zones later on. You know, everything was kind of getting consolidated, clean up, pick up. People were going around. I don't know if you knew or not. They were hiring I'd say my generation, my service generation
Mhm.
to come out to go clean up for civilian companies. Some of these guys jumped out and said, the heck with deployments. I can go clean up unexploded ordnance for X amount of dollars.
Yeah, make 200,000 a year.
Yeah, they were over there blowing up trash. You know, oh, it was like a
Right.
boom, set some C4 and blow it. And a buddy of mine said, hey, you know, it's great. Look at me. And I'm like, I hate you. I hate you. We didn't have cell phones, but any letter I got, I was like,
So-
sorry.
So that just reminds me, when I was in Iraq, it blew my mind. I was on Camp Cropper, which was on VBC, but it blew my mind to see the amount of contractors that were there. It was like to do the same job that your MOS was, there'd be like 4 of them or whatever, and they're getting paid $125,000 a year. We couldn't even do our own laundry. We had to turn it in to somebody to do it, and they got paid like $150 per bag of laundry, and they take all your laundry and just put it in this one big industrial thing in the bag and just wash it. But it was just crazy to see how people can, and there's nothing wrong with profiting off of that, but it blew my mind to really see basically the amount of contractors that was over there.
War is big business. I mean, I won't get into politics, but if you think about the issue they're having with the VA right now because of the big bonuses to retain people before Congress, I got on Facebook the other day, social media hell, if you want to call it that, and how people attack. But these GIs got on there and they're like, hey, if you ever enjoyed your last cup of coffee at one of these while in country, you had a great deployment. And I thought, they got a coffee shop? War has got so profitable, there's a coffee shop?
Let me tell you, speaking of that, that's funny. So as soon as we flew in, we'd have to in process in Kuwait, right? And then you'd be there for like 2 weeks, and then they flew us on into Bag Hell. But I like to tell people around me, it says, I bet you I'm the only person that has sat in a Starbucks with 300 rounds of ammunition and an M16 strapped to my back, sipping a grande latte, mocha Mika Mika in the middle of Starbucks, in the middle of a desert. We had McDonald's,
and that's
Starbucks.
That is the picture as far as elections and deployments that needs to be posted on Facebook. Those hypocritical coffee makers. But anyway, it's but it's all joking aside, when a base is built, it starts from scratch and it builds, and you add to it, you add to it.
It becomes a city.
Yeah, but when you're in a war zone so long that you have added coffee shops and massage parlors and stuff like that, you've become too comfortable in that region. And do we need to be there?
Probably not.
Not for a
no, we need to get in and out. We don't need to be there and do our mission, get out. We don't need to that's another thing. But you're right. So I could kind of understand, because we were in Kuwait, right, for the Starbucks. It's not really a war zone. We're still, a couple 100 miles from the border. But then we fly into Bag Hell, and then we get there, and we get to our camp and whatever. We start exploring around our base and stuff. We'll find green beans coffee, blah, blah, blah. They had a Burger King. It was just like going down the street here and walking. It was crazy.
Well, it is funny because I remember deployments landing on a KC-135 tanker and not even having a ladder to get out. We were like making a human chain and dropping people and using a all-terrain to put a pallet on and use it to get people off, so they didn't break a leg. And, it's changed, because when we actually got to complain about something,
right,
commissary, the ex-post office group decided to put a little hut, went in there and like, look, if you don't get some cigarettes and tobacco, somebody's going to die. So we got toilet paper. F your toilet paper. If y'all going to bring us something, bring us something.
Right. So I can find a scrap of paper somewhere.
Yeah,
we'll find them.
We're soldiers. We'll find them and wipe our ass.
Yeah. Well, hey, don't they even put some of that in the MRE? So I'm good, man. Give me some smokes and some chew. So what were some of the biggest challenges you faced during some of these deployments or missions, or just?
I don't think at the time the challenges were all that much of a challenge for us. And I'm leading into something here, because you do your job, and if you're trained right, it's just part of your job. It's changed from a desert in Utah to a desert, in Middle East or wherever you may be at. It becomes the mental issues of loneliness, missing your family, not choking the crap out of your buddy because he stepped on your bunk again or kicked your sleeping bag over, or, it's not letting your mind. I think your biggest challenge is your mind. Once all that stops, that's when it gets to be the challenge. That's when the tendonitis sets in. That's when all the problems you hear about sets in. I just think while you're doing, it's much easier because you just do. That don't even sound right, but it's a duty and it drives you.
Right.
And I miss my family over there, and there's anytime you can find a place, there's men and women, things are going to happen. People find their ways of dealing with it. But deployments, to me, your biggest challenge is not slowing down, because once you slow down.
So for me, it was like six days a week, 14 hours a day, and that. But you're right about missing your family. That or family, friends, or whatever it is back home. That's worse on you, I think, than actually facing the dangers. In some point, I'm not putting actual combat things happening or your life being in danger, but that can mind fuck you a lot, and it does.
I mean, when you think about it, if you go put it in the aspect of going to work, how many times you sitting at work, no matter how busy you are, you take that moment to go to the crap or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you're thinking, man, it is 75 degrees and sunshine. I could be fishing. I could be doing this. You kind of have an option because you're only 30 miles from the house, maybe. Man, I'm going to go get sick, slide out. You have options that play in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say most people would be a liar if they didn't say that. But when you're in a deployed war zone, you're kind of stuck. And we had a guy try to go over the fence, literally.
Mm-hmm.
We get a call. Hey, so-and-so? Yeah, man, why are you asking me over the radio? Because we need somebody to come to the fence before we shoot this motherfucker. And that's what the guy said. He has got his duffel bag and he is trying to climb over the fence because he's decided he's going home.
He's going to walk 12,000 miles.
We're like, dude, he's not in our group.
Yeah.
We know him, but he said, well, we know y'all always hung out. We're trying to keep this dude from getting seriously losing his career.
Right.
Then you're
oh yeah. Then that's a whole road that you don't want to go down, especially if you desert or whatever you want to do. But it's kind of crazy though, even though you kind of get mind fucked that way. I look back and I used to hear old veterans say, whenever they talk about their experiences, like, I miss it, or I'd like to go back. And I found myself saying that years and years later, and I look back, and even though you have those challenges, you have no other options, like I'm stuck here for a year or whatever, I got to deal with that. But one of the things that was comforting to me was, hell, I knew what I was going to wear every day. I knew what I was going to eat. I knew what my mission was. I didn't have to think on that aspect. And that helped me. And I kind of miss it.
Well, you wind up missing it. I miss the camaraderie of the people.
Mm-hmm.
You wind up missing the fact that let's just, so people understand, if you're 18 to 32 and you served in the military in a combat zone or any kind of structured environment with the military for a duration of more than 2 years, okay, got past your training and actually got out in the service to be part of it. If you go and grab somebody that's in that same age group and put them side by side, when they are 50, this group that served in the military has done more adrenaline rushed life.
Yes.
So when they hit 50, they're kind of bored, they're mad, they're angry because they're starting to miss it, because that group is constantly to the right, is constantly just kind of building.
They're just trying to get there.
Yeah, when they hit 50, they're like, okay, it's been this and that. You have a sudden shut off at that age group. And if you stayed for 20, that's your time frame for your shut off. And it kind of goes back to the, you miss the people, you miss the camaraderie, you miss the adrenaline, because like you said, if you're hanging outside of an aircraft, if you're parachuting, if you're in a vehicle doing something, if you're doing maintenance on an aircraft, whatever it is you're doing, you don't have time to think about the bills, the dog.
Right.
You're focused on that.
Yeah. And it's funny you said that, we're sort of the same age group. I think you're probably about 20 or 30 years older than I am. But no, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a 73er. So, but my wife, I'll be sitting here. I'll come home and after work or whatever, and I'm sitting here just kind of going, okay, okay, okay. And she goes, "Oh, are you bored again?" And I'm glad you brought that up because, yeah, actually, I am kind of bored. I'd like to have a good neighborhood shooting down the road, or something go on, or something that feeds that adrenaline rush.
And that's part of the problem. Somebody asked me at a place we used to work at, I won't mention their name because they're a bunch of douchebags, but hey, I felt the need to
I
take.
think I know who you're talking about. Maybe.
Maybe.
I said,
Yeah,
I think I know.
there's some good people there.
Right.
Decisions. I joke about it, but most people don't know this. Just touch base real quick. I never had any hard feelings. They had a decision to make, and I disagree with certain things, but I'm not making it personal.
It is what it is.
It is. And, I would take that motorcycle and hit 100 plus. Why? If you ever jumped out of an airplane, try to replace that feeling.
Mhm.
And when somebody tells you you can't do something anymore or your health, you start to look for ways to fix that boredom, fix that adrenaline, and it affects your marriage and your kids and everything else, and that's where I was at for a long time and still am, trying to fill a gap that I don't think I'll ever be able to fill. I mean, when you get right down to it.
It's going to be hard. I mean, I don't know. A lot of people would call it midlife crisis or whatever. I don't even think it's that. Because, to me, a midlife crisis is me going out and banging a hooker and buying a Corvette or something, like that. And I have no desire to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think our receptors, after you've been in for a while or any amount of time and you've experienced some of these things, your brain receptors change to where that adrenaline you just need it.
Yeah.
And you have to retrain yourself at some point.
And you hit the nail on the head about the adjustment from civilian life between the two. A lot of your day is laid out for you. You pretty much know what your uniform is going to be for the day. They make class A's, class B's.
Right.
When you make NCO status at a certain level, say E7, you're kind of making those decisions based on what the commanders told you or whoever. So there's that aspect of it. And, it's pretty much PT. Are we doing it 3 times a day
Right.
or a week, or what are we doing, Right. And there's a lot of leadway there for the
Right.
NCOs to run with it. So the stress part of that, I got to get up and go to work this morning. What am I going to have for breakfast? I got to fix my own breakfast this morning, or my wife's got to fix breakfast. And
right. You didn't go to the chow hall or the DFAC, and it's just there. You might have some options, but it's there.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I had to give a cook one time, and this is where the military to me differs from civilian life and status quos. I despise status quos. I don't believe people are any different. They may have different jobs or whatever, but got up. We gave everybody a month to do their own PT, kind of some stand down. We're going to let you do your PT. You show up on these days on your own. The rest of the days are formation. So I went and did mine. It was a Monday morning. First 2 in there. Little sergeant's cooking and he is slamming stuff. He is mad about something. And I was like, I want these eggs scrambled, blah, 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 blah. I told him what I wanted. Right. He throws some biscuits on the plate and slaps these runny eggs on top of everything. And me, I hate runny eggs. I've been to the Philippines and I ain't eating another runny egg for the rest of my life. And he slaps them on there, but I did not lose my cool. I said, Sergeant, I want to talk to you for a minute. And I said, you come around here at the end of the counter. He come around. I said, look, we're your first 2 people in here, and you have pissed me off royally. All I wanted was 2 scrambled eggs, a couple of biscuits, and I got this. You've probably got one of the most important jobs on this post every morning. You see everybody before we do. If you start their day off like this, by the time they get to me, somebody's getting an ass whip and wrote up Article 15 because I'm not going to put up their attitude because you fucked their breakfast this morning. I said, you know, every morning who's coming through here. Find a way to dump your problems, you know, because
Mhm.
you are what keeps us going. You
Yeah.
feed us, you clothe us, your unit, you know, that's what you do. This is,
Quartermaster. Yeah.
yeah, this is why we're here.
Mhm.
But you've done pissed me off so bad, and XO is going to get his ass whipped. That little butter bar is fixing to go down. XO turns him, what? I said, yeah,
I
me and you
call
going
them
to fight all day.
I call them private officers.
Yeah. And he's like, you know, Sergeant First is right. You know,
Right.
you are very important, and you need to realize that. You can't,
Mm.
you know, you're like everybody else. You can't bring your personal problems to combat unless you're on the killing side, I guess, you know,
Right.
downrange. And I hate my wife. I'll take it out on the Taliban. But as far as your day to day, that's what I liked about the military. You can have those conversations.
Right. You could be candid with somebody.
I went back there in lunch, and that sergeant, he come up, apologized. And, you know, the old thing is, man, I don't need an apology. I just need you to
Change.
roll with some Fido, you know, fuck it and
So,
drive on.
so speaking about transition, so this is one thing I found myself, and then I think a lot of reservists and National Guard folks, because you know they used a lot of us during these 20 years plus of war. Is all of a sudden you're doing your weekend duties, you're at home, you're doing this, then you're thrust into a war zone for a year, sometimes a year and a half at one time, and then all of a sudden they bring you back and they throw you out, and you're expected just to go mow the yard and weed the flower. It's like, oh, hey, neighbor. And there's like no transition at all in your mind. And it takes so long. And I think that's why a lot of vets, be honest with you, they can't make that transition quickly enough. And that, honestly, I think that's why there's a lot of suicides, especially amongst reservists and National Guard folks.
Well, and that's the key, Matt. I mean, there is no transition, and they kick everybody to the curb. And I'll touch base on what you just said. I was at a post, won't mention no names, Fort Campbell, and their post commander told our commander, because we were training a lot of reservists and National Guards doing their quals at the time.
Mhm.
He said, I want them MFs off my post, and I want them off now.
Mhm.
He had no respect for National Guard or reserves of any component. It showed in the hospital and everything else. Now, here's what's harder to do a job every day, or step in and fill that job once in a while and be proficient at it.
The step in.
Step in. World War II, predominantly reservist. There was a ton of draftees and reservists. Vietnam, draft reservists. Now, for people that don't know, one or two things happen to reservists. You either go to combat or you backfill the people that go to combat. There's a ton of reservists that get called up to do their jobs and man, say Fort Knox. We're going to deploy Fort Knox and we're going to shove reservists in so we can take the active duty. So there's the two ways it basically works. And they don't get the respect. And I've been on both sides of the fence, active and reservist. National Guard is state owned until they go under Title 10.
Correct.
And then reservists are federal owned till they go under Title 10, and then they're considered active. And you know, they pull you, they send you to Saudi Arabia, they send you here, they send you there. You come back, and it's not just the reservists and National Guard. What I'm getting at, even active duty. Thank you, we love you, get the fuck out. And they try to get you to not talk about your headaches, your knee, your tendonitis. You're pretty good, ain't you? Yep. Okay, physical's over. Have a nice day.
Rub some dirt on it, or like when you used to go to the medic, says, oh yeah, I think my arm's broke and dangling here by the skin. Here, ibuprofen and hydrate.
And you know, when I first come back from that first deployment, you know how we got our medals? Take a wild guess. How do you think they would give you a medal for coming back from a deployment that's going in the history books, if you will?
So you're talking about actually presenting it to you.
Presenting it to you.
They probably just did you like me when I got an achievement medal for one of my things. I came back into the headquarters office and they say, oh yeah, your medal's over here, by the way.
Oh, we didn't even get that. We got told to go see the major after the medals had been issued and put in our files, which we didn't know. We go see this major. We knock on the door. He asks who it is. We go in and do the report. We're holding salutes. He looks up. flops them on the desk and said, "Those are for you. Have a nice day. Get out of my office."
Wow.
So we picked them up. Me and the other guy, we have to open them. Okay. There's 2 of each. One for you, one for me. And my NCO said, "Look, he's pissed because he had a chance to go. He didn't go. His
He didn't
career
get
is
him.
over. He's on high year tenure for his rank.
Oh yeah.
And this
Yeah.
would have made him a light colonel, blah, 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 blah." And to touch base on what you're talking about with the transitions, these are some of the people you're dealing with, though. They really don't give a shit about you. It's a job, and they're not getting theirs. So,
Right. Well, I know we got to start wrapping things up. We've been jaw jacking here for a little bit here, but I know we've kind of hit on some of the, it seems like a lot of negative things and bad things, but there's some good things about the military. And like you said, I think the biggest thing that comes across to me is the camaraderie that you build with both your brothers and sisters, and some of the bad things is the damn bureaucracy bullshit that you have to go through. But overall, what would you like to share for some of those folks out there that might be considering joining the military, or even for a short time, or even having a career?
it's a good learning experience. For one, you learn a lot. It's free education. If you're getting paid to learn, let's just take college and everything you know from everybody else. It's a new part of life that you're getting to learn, and you're learning it under a structure where if you don't learn, you've either got a bad instructor or you just didn't apply yourself. And let's face it, there's benefits down the road that come with it. You pull 4 years, you got your education benefits. You got some cool stories to talk about. I mean, it's just so different. And people, oh, well, it's a bunch of killers. Everything in the military is not about killing. There's some very good jobs,
Oh yeah.
Be a paralegal. You can be a paralegal.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the one place that a young man or woman that has drive could step in and say, "I want to be this," and lean on your recruiter and get into it. And, hey, I'm a paralegal and I could be a lawyer because I did this in the military for 4 years, and you did it while working. That's the biggest
And getting
thing.
paid.
And getting paid, you got your NCO clubs, reduce, I don't know about now, but used to be reduced cost on booze. If you're a drinker, food, you take your wife, family out, a lot of benefits that come down the road that people don't see. That's non-monetary.
And one of them, whenever you get, and one of them is when you get old over a certain age, you can buy one of those veterans caps, those big old black ones.
Yeah, and wear it with pride.
And wear it. Yeah.
You're touching on something there right now. Most people don't know this. If you serve, it is to a company's benefit to hire a veteran. They used to get grant money and training money, and a lot still do, for hiring veterans and hiring a percentage of it. And when you apply for a job, your honorable or dishonorable discharge is attached to your Social Security number. And earning that veteran status is probably one of the biggest things about being in the service. Less than 3% of this country serve and have the veteran title with an honorable discharge. If I remember right. It's not a lot. So people, I want to do something different. Well, there's a start. And I'll be honest with you. Me and you became friends not because of where we worked and your job. I think we became friends because of this that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And we both.
And when I first met you, I didn't know for 100% that you were in the military ever or what, but I could just tell, because you can tell by your demeanor, the way that you handled things and stuff. And there was that structure, and it's kind of like, okay, I know where this is. This guy's coming from. I think he might be military.
and that's a good place to be in life, having those kind of ties to people and understanding, because believe it or not, the Air Force bases a ton of their training off college and business. I mean, for years they developed that. They helped develop business tactics, vice versa. And the military is a huge organization for that. So, people that's wanting to join, it is what you make of it. And it is what it is. Nothing's perfect. We worked at companies that weren't perfect. We've worked in systems that wasn't perfect. You either make it better or you're part of the problem, or you move on and say, okay, I don't want to have nothing to do with that. I got to go over here. I got to do this. Military is really no different. It's that part that you bring up, the camaraderie, the recognition of people. You want a job that lets you stay physically fit? Strap a 40-pound ruck with an M16 and let's go hiking.
Let's do 12 miles.
Let's do 12 miles and then go to the target range and prove that exhausted and winded and starving and raining and we hate life, that we can still put rounds down range and hit.
That's right. That's right.
You're physically fit at that point. And,
awesome.
yeah.
Well, Ken, we're going to wrap things up here, but I've really enjoyed our time. I hope we can do this again. Again, this is our first episode of the Vet Files, and we'll come back and do it again. But man, it's been great talking to you today.
Well, I've enjoyed it, Matt, and I did want to touch one base.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not about the person that needs to get out, and this show I think will be great. I can come to you and say, "Hey, I'm Ken Freeney. I am a vet line." Is that what we're going to tag this as?
I'm Ken Freeney. This is my vet file.
This is my vet file. So I'm Ken Freeney, and this is my vet file. Take that part out, the vet file, or I'm sorry, the Ken Freeney.
Yeah.
Enough veteran stories are not being told because the VA will tell you right now the majority of veterans are in an age group that has a disconnect from the younger veteran group. And when it's gone, all these stories are gone. They're not going to know. They're only going to know what they're getting now. And, we're looking at that 45 to 75 age range, and then the 20 to 35, there's a 10-year gap there. You can look at the numbers, but this is stuff that needs to get out. It needs to be a little bit of the stuff that you mentioned earlier about the suicides and the good and the bad and the funny stories. There's just too much out there that's being lost. That's history.
Right. Oh, I totally agree. And if you're out there watching this podcast, hit us up in the comments and subscribe. If you have anybody that, or even if you're out there and you want to tell your story, hit me up and we can try to get together and make sure we document this and get it out. And just, hey, vets helping vets, right? That's what we're all about. So, all right. Well, Ken, thanks a lot. And again, this is the Vet Files.
To the home front side. Tune in, turn it up, hear the heroes speak. The Vet Files bring the truth every week. From the fight to the mic, it's a soldier's life. You're live with the Vet Files, real stories, real life.